A famous story from the Buddha's life is called the Shakya Hatya, the massacre of the Shakya tribe, of the Buddha's own tribe. And the story is somewhat like this. One of the friends of the Buddha is King Prasenadi and of Kosala, a neighboring kingdom. And you know, he has come up in the world, he has become powerful, and he feels entitled to marry a princess of a very, very prestigious tribe, the Shakyas. Because the Shakyas are not just any tribe. See, they are the descendants, or so they claim at least, the descendants of the children of Manu. Manu, the patriarch, already in the Rig Veda, already in the very oldest layers of the Rig Veda, Manu is venerated as their ancestor, as the founder of mankind, or at least of the Aryas. And so many stories are told about him. Whether they are historical is a different matter, but at least in the Buddha's days they believed that at some point Manu had fallen in love with a younger woman, and she said, yes, okay, I want to be your wife on condition that my eldest son becomes your successor. But you see, Manu already had wives and children, so to make his consent to this demand credible, he sent all his children away. Because otherwise, if he died, you know, his children would be there, his sons would be there and claim the throne, and the still very young son of his new wife would not be able to claim it. And so he sent all his children away. And they were wandering through the forest, looking for a new home. And they came to the hermitage of the sage Kapila. Kapila, the founder of the Sankhya philosophy. And Kapila said, well, you know, there's a space here in the forest. Why don't you build a village here? And so they did. And that village became Kapilavastu, which is the city where the Buddha grew up. And so the Shakyas were a very special tribe, were very conscious of their very prestigious pedigree. And one of the consequences was that they were very, very, well, shall I say, niggardly on themselves. They didn't want to have anything to do with other people. They were very strictly endogamous. They married only among one another. And indeed, if you look at the genealogical tree of the Buddha, you see that whereas other people have 8 great-grandparents, you know, 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, he had only 4 great-grandparents. That is to say, how shall I put it, the father of his father was the brother of the mother of his mother, and the father of his mother was the brother of the mother of his father. You follow? Okay, so I mean, it was very, very tightly knit. And so the thought of giving away one of their daughters to some foreign interloper, you see, that was really beyond them. And so suddenly they got this powerful neighbor, Prasenadi, who wanted to pursue one of their girls. And so they consulted among each other. They said, well, you know, he is too powerful to make an enemy of him. You know, we should give him what he wants. At the same time, we don't want to throw away, you know, the precious genes of a Shakya girl. And so what happens? You see, the ruler of the Shakyas, like many elite men, he has some love affairs on the side. And so his Tibetan maid servant, he has a daughter with her. So that daughter is like half caste, and so she is proposed as the Shakya princess to Prasenadi, and they get married in a ceremony in Kapilavastu, and they go home, and they have a son called Virudaka. And Virudaka, already in the playground, notices that there is something bizarre about him. Because, unlike all the other boys, he has these mongoloid eyes. Because this girl, she's half Tibetan, half Indian, and these combinations can give all kinds of results. You see, some children of a white and black couple are pretty white, some are pretty black. Some are born pretty white and become black later. You don't know exactly. So in this case, the daughter of this Tibetan maidservant, who becomes the wife of Prasenadi, she looks pretty Indian. But her son looks pretty Tibetan. And anyway, he accepts whatever. And then at age 16, I believe, he's invited to a festival at his grandparents' place in Kapilavastu. He goes there, and all the Shakyas have agreed, we're not going to let on anything. We're not going to give the secret away. But at the end of the party, the prince goes away, goes back home. But one of his assistants has forgotten something. And he goes back to Kapilavastu to collect it, and he sees, the activities after the party. They're breaking down everything. And he notices that the chair on which Virudaka has been sitting is being washed clean, as if an untouchable has been sitting on it. And by that time, people are drunk and so on, they're not careful anymore. And he finds out the secret. He finds out that, you see, Virudaka's mother is not a real Shakya. And so the secret, comes to the ears of the king, and he repudiates his wife and his son. Now, at that point, the Buddha intervenes, or the Buddha is consulted, because Prasenadi consulted the Buddha regularly. And many kings did, because the Buddha was an elite figure. And he knew all these kings personally. And they knew him personally, and they knew where to go for advice. And because he himself was no longer a king or a politician, he was neutral, he was impartisan. And so they trusted him. Now, at that point, if the Buddha didn't believe in caste, he could have said so. He could have said, Prasenadi, what are you doing with this ridiculous caste business? Okay, your son is not a Kshatriya. The Shakyas are deemed to be Kshatriyas. Okay, he's not a real Kshatriya, but so what? Caste is ridiculous. Stop with this caste business. If he was an anti-caste crusader, that is what he would have said. He doesn't say it at all. But he says something very important, something very informative. He says, someone is the same caste as his father. The caste of his mother doesn't matter. And this indeed was the old caste system. You see, the last 2,000 or so years, caste meant endogamy. A Brahmin girl married a Brahmin bridegroom, and a Kshatriya married a Kshatriya, and a Shudra married a Shudra. But before that, caste was only in the paternal line. You see, for example, the Vedas are compiled, and the Mahabharata is also credited to Veda Vyasa. Veda Vyasa is the Brahmin par excellence. And yet, he was indeed the son of a Brahmin, Parashara. But his mother was a fisherwoman. She was not a Brahmin at all. And yet he was a full Brahmin. Or you have the famous Upanishadic story about Satyakam Jabala. And he doesn't know his father. You know, his mother has become pregnant somehow. And, you know, she had been a maidservant in many homes of elite people. What caste exactly they were. Anyway, she didn't know who the father was. Many men could have done it. And so the son is looking for a guru. And, you know, he goes to this spiritual teacher. And he wants to introduce himself. The teacher says, come on, you know, who are you? Who is your father? And he goes, asks his mother, who is my father? And she doesn't know. And he truthfully tells the teacher, I don't know. You see, maybe I'm a bastard. That's what he says. And the teacher says, because you have been so truthful, because you are not trying to hide this from me, you must be a Brahmin. Nowadays, Hindu reformers say, this proves that caste is not hereditary. But for 2000 years, Hindus have given a very different interpretation. This means that the teacher is saying, your father must have been a Brahmin. That's why you are so truthful. You have the character of a Brahmin. Compare with a mule, the child of a horse and a donkey. It so happens, I mean, I don't know anything about animals. I read that the child of a horse stallion and a donkey mare whinnies like his father. And the child of a donkey stallion and a horse mare, he brays, just like his father. You see, he's 50% horse, yet the sound he makes is 100% donkey. It's entirely like his father. So it's in that same sense that caste originally was in the paternal line. So apparently the Buddha still adheres to the old system. You know, he has been married, but that was 60 years earlier. At that time, he's already very old. And so it seems that changes are taking place. Because Prasenadi is not convinced, he goes by the new system. That, you see, both mother and father must be the same caste. If your mother and father are not the same caste, you are not a member of that caste. So, you see, since Virudaka's mother is not a real Kshatriya, therefore he is not a real Kshatriya. And the Buddha says, no, this is not true. This is a real Kshatriya. And so Prasenadi relents and he re-accepts his wife and his son. But the son is not really appeased.